Ready to go live? Ready to go live? They're asking me. And I said, yes. And the ball was spinning. And then it wasn't. That means I'm live. Here we are. I wanted to do this earlier because this subject of Woke Week this week is about Bill Burr and Saturday Night Live. And on Sunday, I wanted to wake up in the morning after watching his stand-up appearance on, his monologue at the beginning of SNL. And I wanted to talk about it because it was a perfect Woke Week subject. So let's do the Woke Week, Woke Week. I should probably do another one of those. I was so unsightly and bearded in that, but maybe that's what makes it cool. So Bill Burr did a clinic on Woke Week in his Saturday Night Live monologue. Of course, let's take a look at how things went. The stories were immediate. Let's look at where are we here? Chrome tab. Let's share the main story here from the Post. This was basically every story. Bill Burr's offensive monologue on SNL ignites Twitter firestorm. Oh my gosh, Twitter firestorm. We still have to pretend that there's actual firestorms on Twitter. What doesn't cause a Twitter firestorm? That should be the subject of a story. But of course, people complained that his stand-up was offensive because he attacked cancel culture. And I won't share with you all the different tweets. You can imagine what they are. Oh, this is so offensive. I had to change the channel. How dare Bill Burr attack white women or whatever was happening. So you probably saw a lot of the complaints. Let's stop sharing that screen there. Remove that. There we go. So let's take a look at it. I'm not going to go through the whole video because that would just make this that much longer. But what I will do is I'll play some of it. So I'll bring up the screen when ready. Let's kind of go through what he did here. The thing about Burr is he's so good. He's such a great comedian. And I don't like to talk about comedy. You probably have never heard me do like a critique of somebody's act. Of course, I'm not going to do that here. I guess you could say that I'm going to praise his act because he did a great job because he's always great. Okay. But I want to talk about how he handled the subjects that he handled. That's what's most interesting because obviously comedians should and do say whatever they want to, and they shouldn't be criticized. You should either laugh or not laugh. Nobody should be outraged ever. I'm about as far away from outrage culture as exists. I think it's all stupid and ridiculous, and I have far more contempt for it than Bill Burr does. So I have problems with Bill Burr's attitude toward a lot of this stuff, and I'll express them to you. But what I'm saying is his stand-up was right on the money, doing what he wanted to do, whether I agree with his premises or not. I don't agree with the premises of most comedians, but I love their material nonetheless because stand-up isn't about agreeing. It's kind of like being a stand-up is like when you are in a debate class and they say, okay, here's the debate subject. You have to be pro and you have to be con. So a comedian, it doesn't really matter if you really, if what he's saying is correct. It's how he debates the subject, how he tackles the subject. Do you understand? So it's as if Bill Burr was assigned a thing. He said, here, take this subject, and he goes at it. And so the way you would critique a stand-up is to critique not the underlying premise of what he's saying. That's easy because we all disagree on things. But really the best way to do it is to say, okay, let's take his thesis, and did he express that in a humorous way, which of course he did. So let's go through though, because I'll show you where I basically disagree with every one of the premises of his act. Okay. But I just admire the way he went about doing it. Okay, so let's kind of go without playing the video because I'm only going to play a few clips. He opens up by saying he likes people who wear masks, and he says, I like the eggheads. That's what. So he starts off. He says, "Oh, you got your mask on. You look like a surgeon." Everyone laughs, and then he says, "I like people who wear masks, because we listen to the eggheads, the people who were smarter than us in high school." Which is funny because he's basically saying public health officials are smarter than him, which isn't true. Bill Burr is very smart. And let's just say, Bill Burr is probably smarter than 99% 99% of all public health officials or public officials of any kind, because he's a really, really smart guy. Most good comedians are very smart and smarter than most bureaucrats, So yes, he's smarter than the eggheads, but he always does that. And a lot of comedians do this. He's like, like he's blue collar, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. All I know is this, but he knows a lot of what he's talking about. And of course, he's smarter than the egghead. So I thought that's interesting. Like, comedians say false things all the time. Calling these people smart. Oh, we listen to the smart people. That's why you wear your mask. And he says, I love people who don't wear their masks too. Now, this is what I love about, this is a perfect premise. And I used to do this in my stand-up class when I taught stand-up at the Pit Theater for years. I would always have the students, one of the exercises we did, I'd say, write down everything, write down a bunch of things that you like. Okay, now write down a bunch of things that you hate, that bother you. Now let's switch those things. So your stand-up assignment is to say you hate the subway, right? I would say, now you have to, your setup is, I love the subway. You know why I love the subway? I love, the subway for the following reasons. And you're automatically off to the races in writing some stand-up, because then you can openly complain and you've done the flip. Stand-up is about, you make a premise and then you flip it on its head. Well, you've already flipped it, because now your premise is the opposite of the way you feel. And the audience understands that once you talk about how much you hate the subway while saying you love it, you've got your twist there already. So it was a kind of a stand-up 101. And I love people who don't wear masks. Go ahead, take out your grandparents, kill your family. What do I care? So it was funny in that way. Again, I appreciate the bit, even though obviously anybody who knows me knows I completely disagree with the premise. People who wear masks are not saving their grandparents, and people who don't wear masks are not killing their grandparents. It's an absurd idea, based on an absurd belief in people who Bill Burr calls the eggheads that are smarter than him. It's ridiculous. In fact, if you want to talk the statistics, you probably saw maybe you didn't see it. 70% of the people who get COVID are full-time mask wearers. 70% of the people wear masks all the time. 5% don't wear masks. The people with the mask get COVID more than the people without the masks. Anyway, Bill Burr, good bit. A completely false premise as far as I'm concerned. People without masks are not killing their grandparents. I still appreciate it. His next bit, Rick Moranis got sucker punched on the Upper West Side. Something funny about just that, even the setup, the sound of it. Did you hear Rick Moranis got sucker punched on the Upper West Side? It's just funny. It's perfect Bill Burr language, the way that, he likes to say things. And then his biggest laugh and his biggest applause, Rick Moranis got sucker punched on the Upper West Side. New York is back, baby. Big applause. It's all attitude. It's all funny. And again, it's flipping. He's not glad that a fellow comedian and hero of his got punched, right? And nobody is. So he flips it on his head. New York is back, baby. Huge. It's just funny. It was great. Okay. But then he goes on to say, like, oh, we deserve it. And he's making fun of New York. Like, we became very, he makes a joke, you got to take the good with the bad. If you have people getting mugged is the, I'm mangling his bit, but he basically says something about the M, like, if you have an M&M store, that's what you deserve, right? It's hilarious because years ago, in the 90s, we started this whole thing about, oh, New York just got soft. Now Times Square is like Disney World. And New York is not soft anymore. New York is a miserable place to live. We're living now in the era of COVID with the lockdowns. Crime is up. Our mayor is horrible. So there's no more Disney in New York. I mean, New York is a total nightmare, and Bill Burr knows it. But he just ignores that, and he plows on with the premise that, oh, New York got soft, and now we're back, baby. And everyone does laugh at that, even though, once again, the premise is completely false. When you're talking about actual reality, he's completely wrong. I don't really care, though, because you can disagree with someone and appreciate their points. Okay, so that's two areas where Bill Burr is completely wrong, but delivers on his premises. Now we'll go into the meat of his act and the thing that got him in trouble with the so-called woke crowd, when he attacks cancel culture. Let's take a look at the bit, because I kind of want to make sure I get the language right, where we do this. So let's play this here. Oh, wait, I didn't do the audio, right? Stop it. See, this is where we get sloppy. I don't know how to do my own thing here. Let's share the screen, right? I wasn't even doing it correctly here, so we'll do it. I got to share my screen. I got to highlight it, and I got to share the audio along with it. All righty. All right, back to Bill Burr. Here we go. I wanted you to see that bit. I got to stop it now. This thing is so confusing because my computer kind of stinks. It slows everything down when I play video. Okay, another great bit, but it started on the cancel culture. They canceled John Wayne, but it's interesting. This is what I want to talk about with Bill Burr. Okay, the interesting thing about this is I could not do a stand-up set on cancel culture because I have no regard for it at all. Like, my bit would be like, oh, cancel culture, it's stupid. The people who engage in it are foolish. Woke culture is completely illegitimate, and white privilege is a made-up thing. Bye, everybody. Like, I wouldn't have anything to say. It's like I can't even joke about it because I have so little regard for it. Bill Burr actually buys into woke culture, and he goes on to say that he does. And he gives his own version of what he believes it should be, and where they've gone wrong. But he buys into all this nonsense. He actually believes it. Cancel culture, right? He says they're actually canceling John Wayne, and he says don't cancel John Wayne. Why? Not because he's great or he makes sense or anything like that. Because he's an old man, and old people have the wrong ideas and thoughts. You see, I completely disagree with Bill Burr. I think old people have wisdom and young people are stupid. But Bill Burr is buying into the idea that all these young people in the Saturday Night Live audience, oh no, you're smarter than your grandparents. You know, when your grandparents talk and you just want them to shut up, so that's his premise. I fundamentally disagree. That's not why cancel culture is bad. He's basically saying cancel culture is bad because John Wayne's bad, old people are bad and stupid, and we should just not pay attention to them, let them cook dinner and, move on with our lives. So again, it's like it's buying into woke culture, which is so interesting because it's almost the only way you can talk about it. You couldn't do an actually politically correct monologue. And I don't even know if Bill Burr, believes this stuff, but I think he knows what he needs to do to navigate. Louis C.K. was great at this kind of thing too, giving liberal America or left-wing America what they wanted to hear. And, that's why Louis had all this like ostensibly feminist material that he would do. And it was brilliant the way he did it, but he would buy into serious left-wing ideology. He would buy into it, but then he would poke fun of it while also assuring the crowd that he essentially believed in the basic tenets of it. And that's what Bill Burr is doing here. And I might add, doing so brilliantly. But again, so we're going through each subject. I disagree with the premise of every one of his bits so far. And so let's move on here. Can I play some more video? Let's see if I can. It slows my computer down. I can't stand that. Let me just see if I can share the screen and do this next bit so we can at least see it, right? This is why I need a producer, right? To do all this stuff for me, but it's charming, isn't it? It's charming. Oh, no, dummy. I shared the wrong screen here. See, Shalou's like very unsophisticated at this thing. Let's share the, do I even have to do it? You guys are going to be like, just skip the video, Shalou, and tell me what you think. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's see the next part of it here.
Accomplishment.
Oh, it stopped. It's so funny, this premise, because you can tell he's off to such a, it was about that for about 8 seconds, and now he's going to criticize white women for, hijacking the woke movement. But I love that he says the woke movement, which, as you know, I have no regard for at all. Bill Burr does have great regard for it. He says it was supposed to be about people of color and giving them the opportunities that they don't have. Okay, so he creates this ideal version of woke culture, which is not what it is at all. But basically, he's saying something that almost all Americans agree on. So he takes this premise, woke culture, and then he gauzes over it and says it's about giving opportunities to people of color that they don't get. Well, that's something that everyone agrees with. I mean, Mitt Romney would say, like, I absolutely agree with that. Donald Trump would be like, that's great. I'm all for opportunity. I mean, creating opportunity for people of color, that's obviously not what the woke movement is about. So again, a completely faulty premise, but he delivers on it in a great way, because then he goes after white women, and I'll skip that, but he basically makes fun of the white women, and then let's get to where I wanted to, which was the conclusion of his. Oh, so funny. Okay, so that's what a lot of people didn't like, and a lot of people were complaining. I can't believe Bill Burr, he's so terrible, so misogynist, and all this stuff. The funny thing is, I think the crux of what a lot of people were so offended by was based on a misunderstanding of what he said. Now, like I said, I've already expressed to you over and over that I disagree with the premise of almost everything he has said so far, including this thing about how woke culture really is good, but it was corrupted by white women, right? But at the end, he says, centuries of oppression, and he's talking about himself, white males. And he says, you stood by us through centuries of oppression, and now you want to be in a special category. Sit down next to me and take your talking to. So what he's saying is the real aggrieved people, the people of color, now have every right to lash out at white males, and they should have to lash out at white females as well. Sit next to me while we take our lashing. Sit next to me while white people get the tongue lashing or actual lashing that they are entitled to, that they are entitled to get. I think a lot of women watch that, and when they hear a man saying, sit down, shut up, and take your talking to, I think they were thinking Bill Burr was saying that to his wife or girlfriend. In fact, maybe not knowing his wife is black, and so maybe that's why Bill Burr didn't think of this, that it would be misunderstood in that way. But when women hear, I'm assuming that lots of social media people just heard Bill Burr saying to women, sit down, shut up, and take your talking to. It was a guy yelling at his wife in a tank top or something, when in fact Bill Burr was saying all white people have to shut up and take a lashing from black people. Because Bill Burr is woke. He believes in all this. Okay? He believes in the white privilege. He believes in all this thing. He just thinks it should be an exclusively black thing, and everyone else has to shut up because Bill Burr's obsessed with color. Okay? So with that simple misunderstanding, I think some people heard Bill Burr say, sit down, shut up, and take your talking to, and think it was a dude talking to a woman and like, hey, shut up, women, men are better, whatever. It's all very, obviously people misunderstand everything because they're not too bright, but that's how that went down, I think. Again, the whole thing is ridiculous. Woke culture is bad. It's not good and ideal, like Bill Burr said. Nobody stole it. We should just, it's ridiculous. But again, that doesn't make for good comedy when you completely dismiss something whole cloth like I do. Okay, and then the next thing he does, Gay Pride Month is too long, and that gets a kind of a ooh from the audience. But then he compares it to Black History Month. Once again, another group of people that black people are on a higher moral plane than, and then the idea is you guys should shut up. You don't get a whole month. Like, black people deserve the month. You don't deserve the same month that they do. I'm mangling his act. Obviously, he did it in a very funny way. But again, his premise is ridiculous. And it's all based on this idea that he believes completely in the idea of white privilege. He really buys into this thing about, essentially the oppression, and that all white people now have to take a back seat and listen and take their, like he said, take your talking to. I don't know if he really believes that, but like Louis C.K., he's such a master of basically being able to talk to, it's almost impossible now to talk to a huge audience. And Bill Burr, obviously, he has a lot of fans like myself and a lot of like dude fans who don't believe in any of this. I'm sure Bill Burr has tons of white male fans who can't stand the idea of woke culture. They still love this act just like I do because they appreciate the way he handles issues. But I think that there are a lot of people who believe in woke culture who appreciated Bill Burr's act, which I've seen a lot of commenters saying, "Hey, shut up, everybody! Bill Burr's like, a comedian. Don't criticize him." Essentially, I'm fascinated by all of this stuff because I went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 bits of Bill Burr's that are based on essentially completely flawed premises, but he does them he tackles them in such an interesting way. I should look at your comments. You know what I'm going to do is, let's bring up the title. We can further this conversation at, because it's hard to have real conversations in the, did I take that off? Yeah. Okay, the banner's up there. It's hard to have real conversations during the live video, but on my site, tom.locals.com, that is a site on the Locals platform. It's my new site. It's so cool. I hope you go over there and join it. And if you want to join it for 2 months, use the code TomTomClub. That's good till December 9th, a random date that I just chose. Because I think I made the TomTom Club code on the 9th of this month. So I made it 2 months. So go on to tom.locals.com. We're continuing the conversation about Bill Burr there. If you want to join the site, use the code TomTomClub and you're in until December 9th. And you can comment on things and leave your own videos. I've created a cool little community there. So I'm going to keep, plugging that site. Anyway, so cool to talk to you today. And, we'll have more Woke Week coming up. Like I said, this is not weekly. It's not woke. It's whenever the heck I have the wherewithal to make a video. Thursday, we're going to be doing a happy hour on Fox Nation on the social media site. So look for that. Look for it on my my Facebook page and also on Fox Nation. Happy hours are every other Thursday. We'll see you guys soon on Woke Week and off.